Hello and welcome to the Carbon Copy podcast Running Out of Time special. We're following this year's climate relay as it makes its way through Great Britain in the lead up to the finale on the 4th of July, which also happens to be polling day in the UK general election. If you'd like to hear the episodes as soon as they land, subscribe now, and if you like what you hear, do leave us a review or a rating to help other people discover the pod. Today's episode focuses on the Scottish capital, Edinburgh. We meet a local councillor who's working to improve sustainability in the city, with a focus on transport in particular. We meet two green runners, Running Out of Time superstar Kenny Alexander and legendary ultrarunner Jasmin Paris. And we catch up with the relay crew following the first weekend of the event. First, here's Kenny's story.
So I'm Kenny Alexander. I've been taking part in the relay the past 3 years. And I love doing my bit of getting the message around the country and to the politicians and to the media about the fact that we're running out of time and taking actions and transitioning away from carbon intense usage and overconsumption of natural resources. The Green Runners are actively encouraging people not to buy new kit, to speak out about the damage that we're all doing to the world for the future generations. It's so much more fun arriving at a sporting event by train, wearing kit that hasn't been produced in a factory by modern day slaves and designed to last for essentially only one race. These days have to end. That belongs in the past. We need to transition away to a world where we can still take part in sporting events, but take the carbon footprint out of it and all join together to save what we can for future generations. So this year so far, this is quite this is different for me because the organisers of the climate relay asked me to do a reverse ride to the sun, which basically means I'm cycling from Cramond here in Edinburgh to Carlisle, roughly 100 miles. But the section here through the centre of Edinburgh is going to be quite cool because we're getting our own tram. And we're trying to focus on the sustainable transport initiatives from city councils, which again doesn't get the good media that it should. These sustainable transport methods for city centres is a good thing for everybody. Helping to promote that by taking part in this event for the climate relay is a great way of getting the message over to cyclists, like how the Green Runners do, that we can take down the carbon footprint of the cycling industry and the sustainable transport side of things very easily. The alternatives are all already there. We just need the political will. Yeah, join a stage and speak to people. I think that's one of the great things about being part of the Green Runners community. When I attended COP26, I felt very alone in the world. And very frustrated. It was like an angry old man. I'd pick up the newspaper and start shouting at it, what's this? The lies that they're printing, and then shouting at my television whenever I don't watch it anymore. But anyway, yeah, I just felt very alone. But when you join a group like the Green Runners, and you go on their social media and you find out there's others like you out there. I'm not so alone anymore. Maybe within my own family and my own local neighbourhood, there isn't many like me. I mean, most people like me, but they view me a bit quirky. And but then I find I'm not alone by joining groups like the Green Runners. And if you don't want to join a group, then start one.
Kenny has such great energy and passion for making a change. It really is infectious. He mentioned that the community he's found through the Green Runners has been really important to him feeling more hopeful and less isolated by his concern for the climate. At Carbon Copy, we're all about inspiring more collective local action. We can do so much more when we work together, and especially when we're drawn together by a shared interest or issue. Our second guest in this episode is Councillor Scott Arthur, who talks, amongst other things, about the potential for leaders in Edinburgh to come together to solve the issue of congestion in the city, and about the inspiration he takes from the examples of other large European cities.
So I'm the Transport and Environment Committee convener here in Edinburgh. Edinburgh's a really congested city, so some league tables put us, the most congested city in the UK, but we're certainly in the top 5. In the city, we've just published our development plan called City Plan 2030. And in that, there's a commitment to set aside land to build up to 37,000 houses over the next decade or so. So we're a congested city, and we're going to build 37,000 houses inside the city. And on top of that, we've got a commitment to reduce car miles driven in the city by 30%. So already there's huge challenges. We're going to build up to 37,000 more houses, and we've got to get car use 30% below 2019 levels by 2030. So really, really difficult issues. And cutting across that, I mean, Edinburgh's there's great differences in Edinburgh in terms of inequalities. So, you know, if you're richer or poorer, the way you interface with the transport system is quite different. If you've got a mobility problem, you have real challenges moving around some parts of Edinburgh, and also where you live in the city is a bit an issue. So we've got a fantastic bus network. But if I was to say that in Ratho, which is right at the edge of the city, or in Dummydikes, which is just outside the city centre, people would be furious with me because they don't feel well connected to that bus network. So there's an inequality there as well. So so it's about reducing car use, tackling congestion, and making sure public transport is there to do the heavy lifting. But obviously alongside that, we're investing quite heavily in active transport, particularly, you know, walking, connecting people up to that public transport network, and also cycling. So the ambition is that we have plans so that every household in the city is 200 to 400 metres away from a cycle network. And that cycle network is being deployed just now, but a lot of it's still at the planning stage, and we're still seeking funding from the Scottish Government to deliver that. The big thing we'll consult on this year will be the new tram line, which will go from the north of the city, it's a redevelopment area, Granton, where we're building 3,500 sustainable homes. Those homes will get their heat from a massive heat pump, which draws heat from a huge sewer that goes through the area. Yeah, it's really transformative work. So Edinburgh's its structure is kind of hub and spokes, in terms of we have a city centre, old city centre, with arterial routes coming into it from a bypass that goes around the edge of the city. And so our idea is that for all these arterial routes coming in from surrounding local authorities, we've already got quite a lot of bus lanes and other mechanisms to support buses, but we're really going to accelerate that and build on that. So the idea is that, you know, we're starting to do this already. Some of the buses will have technology on them so they can change the signals as they approach, etc. And the idea is through this is we improve bus journey times in the city by 25%, and also improve reliability to make using the bus much more attractive. We've just launched our biggest on-street segregated cycle network called CC Well. So that was a real tipping point for us. We've got projects linked to that, which will complete this year. We're starting another big segregated cycle project in the west of the city. It's called West Edinburgh Link. And then there'll be other projects coming online as we phase through. We're also trialling 2 LTNs, although we don't really call them LTNs because I'm not sure that's really what they are. What they are is really focused on the communities around schools, making it easier for people to walk and also cycle if they want to school, just generally improving safety for people. And we're currently trialling 2 of them, and one of them should have its final reporting stage after the summer, and the other one's just a little bit behind that. So lots happening actually, a lot happening. We've seen how a city like Paris can go from being so car focused to one where it's completely transformed in terms of active transport. It's already got great public transport, and I hope that's improved alongside it. But you can see what the potential is. And I think that the great lesson for us in Edinburgh is that there is a lot of resistance sometimes, or reaction to some of what we want to do. But I think when people do go to cities, like if they're lucky enough to travel and go to cities like Paris and even London, and cities right across Europe, they see the kind of transformation in these cities are going through. And so the question is always, if it works in these places, why shouldn't it work here?
Our next guest in this episode is one of the UK's most famous ultrarunners, the incredible Jasmin Paris. Jasmin completed a leg of the relay on Sunday afternoon, taking the baton up to the top of Arthur's Seat, accompanied by the relay team and a bunch of other enthusiastic hill running fans. I chatted to Jasmin ahead of her leg to find out more about her reasons for getting involved. Hi, Jasmin. Thank you so much for chatting to us today. It's really great to have you on the podcast. I know you're running a leg of the relay tomorrow in Edinburgh, which is exciting. And you also did some legs last year as well. For anyone who doesn't know who Jasmin is, which I feel like they might have been living under a rock if that's the case, but Jasmin is one of the founding members of the Green Runners and also an ultrarunner, ultramarathon runner, who is the first woman ever to complete the Berkeley Marathons earlier this year, which is a pretty grueling 100-mile race in Tennessee in the US. So Jasmin, how's it going? And would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to be involved with the relay?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here and chatting to you. As you say, I'm a hill and ultra runner. I'm a mum of two. My daughter's 6 and my son Bryn is 3, and I am a vet as well, and I do some research alongside that in work. And in terms of how I kind of got to being involved in the climate relay, so as you mentioned, I'm one of the co-founders of the Green Runners, which is essentially a movement, I guess, we hope to sort of inform and empower and inspire runners to make greener decisions in terms of their running and out with their running as well. So starting in the running community where I guess we have a bit more of a voice, and it's based around the 4 pillars, thinking about how you move, how you fuel, how you kit up, and how you speak out. So in terms of speaking out, the climate relay was right up our street in terms of getting involved with that and really sort of spreading the message about the need for faster and more effective action in the face of the climate crisis, and really calling on world leaders to take action. So I think it's a fantastic way of involving people all the way across Britain. And when I've taken part, it's been really positive, lots of involvement of school children and just local people, the places that you're passing through. And it's been really like a really positive way of speaking out about concerns and regarding the climate crisis. So I'm definitely keen to get involved again.
We've spoken to David from Green Runners as well. We've spoken to Kenny. In fact, I think Kenny is going to be running with you for bits of tomorrow. One of the things that everyone has said is that the community is kind of a mixture of runners who are interested in the environment and environmentalists who are interested in running. So which camp would you place yourself in? Which came first for you?
I'm a runner. So I've been running. I started running as an adult, but now for a good, I'm guessing 16 years or so. I think, I've always been concerned about the climate and about the environment and the need to protect it. And I remember thinking that, doing a school project on that when I was 11 or something about protecting the rainforest. But I would say it's only really in the last 4 or 5 years that I've become increasingly concerned and sort of anxious and about this sort of the speed at which things are kind of deteriorating. So and the need for kind of rapid action. So I think I've only really become really switched on and keyed into the kind of the urgency of the situation in the last 5 years or so. One of the key things when I became a co-founder of the Green Runners around that time was that I stepped away from being sponsored by any sort of company and decided to use the voice that I had, that I'd somehow managed to accumulate as a runner, and to actually speak out about issues that I was concerned about and passionate about and wanted to be able to speak about. So rather than inspiring people to buy new kit, I wanted to be able to speak out about the need to repair, reuse, recycle the kit you already have.
I think through doing this podcast and through getting to learn a bit more about all of the different people involved with the relay, I think I'm learning more and more what an impact the sport does have on the environment. I think it's not necessarily something that I would have ever thought of or thought about that hard before speaking to some other athletes as well. I think those things about the kit, but also about traveling to races and stuff like that. And when we spoke to David, he mentioned that when you got back from the Berkeley Marathons earlier in the year, you gave a talk to some other members of the Green Runners about how you reconcile those kinds of things in terms of the travel and the carbon footprint of that. And I wondered if you just wouldn't mind speaking a bit about that to us here as well.
I guess, for me, it's been quite a dilemma I've been to Berkeley now. I went there 3 times and thank goodness I kind of got the job done this time. But for me, it was a real dilemma flying to the US to run Berkeley. Within the Green Runners, I think we would all agree that with the need to sort of limit the amount that we're traveling and trying to travel, stick to races closer to home where possible. I personally, and I think all of us would try if possible to travel by land and sea, train really if we're going to Europe. So I raced, for example, in Innsbruck last year in the World Championships, and I travelled by train. And before that, I went to the UTMB and I travelled by train. And this year, when I go to the Tour de Géant in September, which is my other big race of the year, I'm travelling by train. So where I can, I would always choose to do that now rather than fly, even though it takes longer and, you know, in some cases more expensive. You know, I'm lucky to be in the situation where I can sort of be able to do that and work on the way. But you're right, with Barkley, it wasn't possible. So I guess for me, it was my sort of key challenge race of the year. That was the only race that I flew to. I really thought I could do Barkley this year. And part of me, I will admit, thought that, you know, if I do manage to pull it off, it will give me a huge platform to be able to speak about this. So in some ways, kind of offsetting, if it works out for me the way that I believed I could manage to make it, then I thought that actually the net effect would be overwhelmingly positive. And that's actually not just in terms of the green runners, but it's also talking about women in sport.
You mentioned a few races that you've got planned in the rest of the year in Europe. And how much do you find that you get an opportunity to speak to some of the other athletes from around the world about all of these issues? And what's the sort of reception that you get when you talk about sustainability with other runners from other places?
Yeah, I think it, to be honest, it varies. There's probably still people that maybe immediately sort of switch off to that idea. For the most part, I think people have been really positive about that. You know, when I've talked, for example, as I say, about my travel, or about, I guess, why I'm wearing an old rucksack that I borrowed from a friend, and why I've got patched up shoes. You know, several people commented on Barkley about that when I started the race with shoes that already had some patches on, and I was wearing an old rucksack and that sort of thing. So I think people do notice, and it does make people think, which is, I guess, the whole point of doing it.
What's happened to those shoes now? I hope you've got them in like a display case in your house.
I'm still using them. Yeah, I still, they're still okay. Like the patches need sort of redoing a bit, and they've come like frayed at the edges. But I mean, Barkley's a pretty big thing to put those shoes through. So
I was going to say, I'm quite impressed that they're actually still in use. I would have thought they'd be completely destroyed by now.
I mean, the kind of the defects in them was pretty small before, but I obviously knew how harsh Barkley would be. So I like sewed up these tiny little defects and then put patches over the top. So I mean, it was fairly comprehensive repairs that I did before to try and like absolutely make them as kind of Barkley proof as possible.
Well, thank you so much for chatting to me. It's been a delight, and I wish you luck tomorrow. Not that you need it, and I definitely good luck with the rest of the events that you have for the year.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thanks very much.
So finally, with 5 days of the relay already under our belts, it felt like the right time to have a chat with the support crew to hear more about their highlights so far and to learn why they got involved in this extraordinary event. Here's a chat I recorded with Harry and Roisin yesterday as they charged the electric support vehicle in a service station somewhere in the Scottish borders. I just wanted to get a little bit about you guys, because obviously we've heard your voices a couple of times already in the podcast, but people don't necessarily know anything about you. So could you just maybe like give a little bit of information about yourselves, like your background, so that people kind of get to know the crew a bit?
So my name's Harry Hughes. I'm from sort of Warwick, Coventry area originally, but I've been living in Bristol for the last year. Rohan, who's also the other crew member, and I went to university together. He taught at school when the relay passed through last year, so he got involved that way, and he knows I'm kind of handy and the kind of jack of all trades type person that I like to think the glue that binds the team together. But that's bigging myself up too much, I think. And I've come along because A, I'm passionate about climate crisis and, acting on it, and B, because I think, what a great way to talk to so many passionate people who are interested in really good projects.
And yeah, my name's Roisin. I'm from Bristol. I studied biology at university, and also had a very varied career doing all sorts of random things. I worked a lot in production, like television production. Also became a scuba instructor, and now I'm brought along mainly because I'm interested in videography, so I'm capturing all the content along the route, sharing that as we go, because that's something I love to do, and it was for a great cause. So yeah, that's why I'm here.
So, can you just give me some highlights from the last few days? Some things that you've found really extra special?
Yeah, there's so much that's happened, like so many different things. But one quite cool thing is we managed to get up on stage at Reeling Festival, which was in Glasgow. Yeah, we had a pretty big crowd to introduce what we're doing. And from there, we had a cyclist that was going to take the baton all the way from Glasgow to Edinburgh. So they cycled the whole stint for us so we could get on with lots of other different things.
For me, one of the highlights was the run with Jasmin Paris up Arthur's Seat yesterday. So it was a lovely evening. And she was so down to earth, so sweet, so passionate about climate action and just really inspirational.
Huge thanks to Kenny, Scott, Jasmin and the support crew for chatting to us for this episode. The relay continues over the border into Northern England and will pick up again in Yorkshire in a couple of days' time. For now, please do check out the show notes for more information about our guests. And if you've enjoyed this episode, why not go back and listen to the previous series of the show? The Carbon Copy podcast is hosted by me, Isabel Sparrow. Our producer and editor is Bradley Ingham. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time.